everybody. My name is Jill Cook and I'm the Membership Director of Labs. And one of the real pleasures of my role is every year I get to put together the Long Service Awards. And it never ceases to amaze me just how many people we have that have served as Labs members for so many years. And it's this time of the year that we all get to acknowledge that great achievement and celebrate their success together. Now, sadly, they can't walk across the stage at convention this year, but I am going to introduce them to you and you'll see them on your screen. So sit back and relax and let's go through them year by year. I'm going to start with those members who joined Labs 25 years ago. Now that was 1996, for those of you who want to know the maths, and we actually have 17 Labs members who joined that year and who are still with us. And I thought, well, 25 years ago, let's just sort of cast our minds back. What was going on in the world back then when these ladies were signing up to sing with Labs? Well, John Major, would you believe, who is the Prime Minister over here, and across the pond, Bill Clinton, remember him? He'd just been re-elected. So that was what was going on in the sort of world of politics. But more interestingly, perhaps, the Spice Girls recorded their debut single, Wannabe, in 1996. So, you know, they've been and gone, but that was their debut year back in 1996. And finally, I think this fact was the one that really stunned me. So 25 years ago, what proportion of the UK population would you say had internet access? These days, we just take it for granted, don't we? But back in 1996, only 4% of the UK population had access to the internet. So what a fantastic time it was to join Labs, and I'm delighted now to introduce you to those members who joined in 1996. Here they are, have a look. I'm sure there's some faces you'll recognise. Well, wasn't that fabulous, seeing all those members who joined Labs 25 years ago, and congratulations to every single one of them. But we're going to roll the clock forward, or should I say back now, 30 years. So these are the 11 members who joined Labs in 1991. Now then again, let's do the same thing. Let's try and cast our minds back, try and get a feel for what it was like in 1991. When these lovely people joined Labs. Well, would you believe the Channel Tunnel was completed in that year? Again, something we all take for granted now, but it was only completed in 1991. And somebody who's a great inspiration for me, Helen Sharman, was the first British astronaut to go into space. And isn't it great that it was a woman? But we always have to have a bit of a musical memory, and the one that I've chosen from 1991 is Bryan Adams. Do you remember Everything I Do it for You? 15 weeks at #1 from the film Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. So that was just amazing, and I'm sure you can all remember that one. And then my final little fact, technology based, is that it was in this year, 1991, that the World Wide Web was introduced and the first website appeared. So not that long ago, really, 30 years, but in that year, these wonderful members joined Labs. Let's take a look. Here they are. Well, wasn't that great, seeing all those ladies who joined Labs back in 1991? But we have members who've served even longer than that. So back in 1986, we have 14 members who joined Lab. What an amazing achievement that is. 35 years of being a Labs member. So you know the form by now. Let's just think about what was going on in the world in 1986. Well, a little bit of royalty for you. Yes, you may have worked this one out. Andrew and Fergie got married. That didn't go well, did it? But that's when they got married. And would you believe the M25 was completed that year? Sadly, I'm old enough to remember before it was completed. But again, we take it for granted now. Although when it was completed in 1991, there were no service stations. So you just had to keep going round and round, I guess, or go off to get your petrol. From a musical point of view, the fact that I picked out from this year was that Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera was launched at Her Majesty's Theatre in London. I think it's still going, actually. 35 years, isn't that amazing? But again, it was so iconic in its day when it first came on stage. And finally, here's a bit of trivia for you. In this year, in 1986, they achieved the highest ever audience for a TV show. Can you think what that was? 30 million people. I'm afraid it's not something particularly highbrow, but it was for EastEnders when Den Watts served divorce papers on Angie. So there you go. That's what was happening this time 35 years ago when these wonderful ladies joined Labs. Let's take a look at them. I'm so proud to introduce them to you. Well, hello again, welcome back. I think you probably know where we're going next. We're going back 40 years, would you believe? Now, I appreciate some of you watching this weren't even born 40 years ago, but this was 1981. And I'm delighted to say that we have 6 members who joined Labs 40 years ago and are still members and still singing Barbershop. So what a fantastic achievement. And just to give you a sense of, well, what was going on when they decided to join Labs, to start singing Barbershop all those years ago. Well, another bit of royalty, bit of a theme here. It was actually the year that Charles and Diana got married in St. Paul's, of course, in that meringue dress. We all, well, some of us remember it. That was a real highlight of 1981. But perhaps another highlight, and this is a musical one for you. You know, we usually think that we never win the Eurovision Song Contest. Well, actually, we don't win it very often, but we did win it in 1981, and it was Bucks Fizz, and they won it with Making Your Mind Up. I bet you can sing it to yourself as I say that. Another bit of trivia that you probably wouldn't have known which year this was, but apparently it was in this year, in 1981, when John McEnroe was at Wimbledon, and he shouted at the referee, "You cannot be serious." It's sort of gone into the lingo, hasn't it? Something that we all know and recognise. Well, it happened 40 years ago, would you believe? John McEnroe at Wimbledon. And finally, again, just to show how technology has changed so much, it was back in 1981 that the first home computer was produced, and it was a Sinclair ZX81. There you go. Not very many of them were produced, not many of them were sold. And now, of course, we all have our computers and our devices and everything else. But back then, the first one ever was introduced. And at the same time, these lovely ladies were joining Labs. Let's take a look at them and congratulate them all. Welcome back. Now we get to the really exciting stage, because for the first time ever in Labs, we have members who'd served 45 years with the association. I mean, it's just mind-boggling, isn't it? And I was very excited because I had to buy some new pins, because we didn't have 45-year pins up until this year. And I'm just so thrilled that we have 9 members who've completed 45 years with our association this year. Now, this obviously takes us back to 1976. And actually, I think for those of us who were around in those ancient days, there's one thing that we all remember about that year, and that was that it was very, very hot. We had a drought, we had a heat wave that went on, and I believe it was over 90 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 consecutive days. And I certainly remember it being extraordinarily hot. So just imagine, you know, in the middle of that, here are these intrepid ladies signing up to sing Barbershop and joining Labs. So what a wonderful thing to have done. A couple of other things for you. In 1976, Anita Roddick, another great heroine for me. She opened the first body shop. What a pioneering woman she was. We do like our strong independent women in Labs. And finally, I've got to give it a mention because, as I say, as a nation, we always believe it's nul point at the Eurovision, but no, in 1976, we won it. We won, and this time it was, can you remember? The Brotherhood of Man, Save Your Kisses for Me. There we go. So 2 Eurovision wins, some royal trivia, a drought, a heat wave, all sorts of things going on. And all through this, we've got these amazing women joining Labs. So let's take a look at those ones who've been with us for 45 years. I take my hat off to you ladies. Congratulations, it's a fantastic achievement. Here they are. thank you everybody for watching this. I hope you found it as fascinating, as uplifting, as inspirational as I have. And again, let's congratulate all the members who've served labs for so many years and are such brilliant members of our association. I'm going to sign off now. Thank you again. It's been good to be with you. I'll see you again next year, I'm sure, to do something similar. But meanwhile, stay tuned, because given how special it is to have these members with 45 years service, we've actually got some interviews with some of them for you. So stay tuned to that and you'll hear more about their stories. Thanks very much. Goodbye.